Okay, so it looks like we are live. That's what I hope so. Hi, I'm Jacob Kubrinsky. I'm the CEO and founder of DevSkiller.
And I'm Tomasz Nurkiewicz, CTO at DevSkiller.
Yeah, at the last webinar, I was like uh, holding with Tomasz. We got a very nice question regarding what to do if we know halfway during the interview that the candidate will not be accepted. So what should we do? Should we like stop immediately with like the honest feedback? Should we continue to fill like all the scheduled time? Should we move on to small talk, etc.? And like at the very beginning, I just want to say that it's very bad situation for both sides. So for the candidate and for the recruiter, that this situation even occurs. So basically, that's why the screening process is so important, because the good screening process allows you to not drive into that situation. But if you do, then what can we do? So Tomek, what's your like experience based on that? Because I know that you conducted like hundreds of technical interviews, so probably there were at least, I don't know, 20, maybe 40 such candidates that after 5 minutes you knew that okay, there is no fit totally. So what can you do right now?
You actually raised an important point, because if you know that the candidate will be rejected after 5 minutes, it either means that he or she was terrible, or maybe you're biased because he or she didn't answer a particular question that you think is crucial. Just like warning you a little bit about it, that if after 5 minutes you already know everything about the candidates, then you might like keep talking for a little bit, because you might change your mind and you might be biased a little bit. However, going back to your question, yes, I did have quite a few situations like that, where after maybe not 5 minutes, but after 10, 15, 20 tops, I knew that nothing bad's going to happen, nothing good's going to happen with this recruitment process. I mean, I'm fairly certain that this candidate's going to be rejected. And I think honesty is a good point here. Like, if you give an honest feedback to a candidate, and you might even give that feedback straight away, then the candidate would actually be thankful. You are not employing a Hollywood principle that we're going to call you one day, maybe. Instead, you're simply saying, all right, I don't think you're a good fit for our company. Of course, you have to be like fair here, and you have to be a gentleman or whatever. Yet, just give an honest feedback. And most of the time, and this is pretty amazing, most of the time candidates are really thankful. Even if the process didn't went well, they are happy that they got this honest feedback. And the feedback is not only mentioning that it didn't go so well for you, but you also try to help a person. And there are many ways in which you can help a person. So Kuba, can you suggest some of them? Like, what kind of feedback would you give?
Yeah, so I think it still depends on the person, because like not every candidate will be open for even constructive feedback, and some candidates don't want to hear the feedback. They just want to go away. So you need to, at the very beginning, verify if the candidate is a person that is open for a feedback or not. And just piggybacking on what you, Tom, said at the very beginning, about like being biased after 5 minutes, that's one thing that you can be biased. But even after 10 minutes, if you are sure that it's not a bias and there is no fit with the candidate, it's good to like try to explore some other areas of the candidate experience to verify if there is something that this candidate in fact knows. Because like if it's a candidate that is not learning, is very straightforward with like arguing with you, that is like sure that he's the or he or she is the best person on the earth, then of course it makes no sense to like continue the discussion. However, if it's a person that you see that, or you feel that wants to learn, wants to teach, is listening to your questions, is listening to your arguments, then it's good to verify where are the gaps and where are the strong points of this person. And then with this honest feedback, you can target this person to get back to you in, I don't know, 3 or 6 3 or 6 months. So if you see that, okay, you have no idea about that, you have no like basics, you have no understanding of the fundamentals, then please like fill those gaps, and then you can get back to us in a 6 months. But yeah, so in terms of like how to give the feedback to the person, it depends what is the problem. Is it a technical problem, or is it like a soft skill problem? And if it's a soft skill problem, then I always have an issue if I should say something to the candidate or not. I remember a candidate someday that asked, why are you going to change the company? Why you don't want to work for your current company? The candidate like answered that, oh, there are no challenges, I'm bored, I'm like sitting the whole day at the company doing nothing, and that's why I want to change the job. And 5 minutes later, I asked, okay, so what do you do to develop your skills? Do you read some books? Do you watch some trainings or something like this? And the candidate responded, no, I have no time to do that. And they're saying, hey, like you said 5 minutes ago that you are going to change the job because you are bored and you don't have nothing to do with the time, and now you're saying that you have no time. So I'm always thinking if I should like highlight such thing, because it was basically a lie from the candidate side. So should I like give a feedback on candidate lying, or should I skip something like this? So in these areas, I prefer to skip it. I'm not exposing that. But if it's like a soft skill, like, hey, you are arguing, you are not listening to the second part, to the second person, you already know what you want to say. Even I haven't finished my sentence. That was the problem that I had many years. So then, yeah, I think you should basically say to the candidate, hey, that's the problem. Also, and the last thing I want to mention, also it happens that there are people working in big corporates that are like, they stuck on the technologies from like 2010 or something like this. They use, I don't know, in Java, AJB 2.1 or Java 6 or something like this. So they are no longer up to date. And for such person, it's good to say, hey, you are getting good salary because you're very like worthy person for this company that you work for, but you're not like as important person on the market. So you either need to like tune and update your skills, or you risk that if you will like change the job, then no one will be like willing to hire you, maybe except the similar corporation that is still using Java 1.6 or some prehistoric C++ version, and they're looking for the people, like NASA was looking for the people with like a skill of Fortran 77 and coding for 640 kilobytes of operating memory. But
you know what?
How do you do? Yeah.
Can I jump right here, because I had a very similar experience with one candidate. She had a job position, fairly senior job position at a bank, and she was like very comfortable working there, and she had a good salary, and it was like very good for her. However, I knew from a very short interview that she is not up to like most recent technologies, and when she like quits the job at the bank, she has no way of finding another good job with her experience. So we rejected her during the recruitment process after like 15 or 20 minutes, and that was okay, but that's not the point. We actually said, you know what, here's your situation. You're working in this bank for like 7 years, and your domain, your knowledge is updated. So you can do two things. You can either stay there, or you can go to another company, and our company is not the one, because we're not looking for people like you. You can go to another company, and here is the list of other companies that we suggest you should look for, because they're looking for interns, for juniors, whatever. And we warned her that she will get a salary cut, maybe in half or whatever, but this is a smart move to make. And this is kind of the feedback. I knew she was like extremely happy to hear that, because maybe she knew it somehow unconsciously, but she wanted to hear it from someone who she kind of trusts, from a recruiter who is honest. We basically said, you know what, you should like quit the job, take something that will give you way less money, but that's going to be a way better choice for you in your career. And that's kind of the feedback I would be I would be extremely helpful for. And also another thing which you mentioned is trying to find places where the candidate is actually good at, because that makes the candidate feel a little bit better. Most of the time, candidates, if they are humble, they know that they didn't really do so well during an interview. And if you don't want to leave them with this like kind of humiliating feeling that it went so terribly wrong and I'm just wasting your time, just find this one piece of technology that they know, just like go through a CV or whatever, and ask them about this technology so that they have this feeling that I'm actually experienced in something. This can go haywire. My last thing, this can go haywire. I once asked a candidate, because I see he knows, I'm going to say specific technology, PowerMock. So I'm asking a candidate, okay, so how do you mock static methods in Java, which is actually an anti-pattern, and I wanted to get him involved in an interesting discussion. And he says that I don't know. Okay, you might not know how to do this. However, you have PowerMock in your CV, which is used precisely for that. So either you're lying or you just put something in your CV without really understanding what it does. And that's kind of one of these things that would disqualify a candidate in the first 5 minutes. So going back to our discussion, because he was, I'm pretty sure he was just lying or he was just exaggerating his knowledge.
Right. There are recruiters that like to humiliate candidates. Do you agree? Like there are people who want to show to the candidate that they are the smartest people on the world, and that's like, and the candidate is always poor and is always stupid, etc. I hate such approach, but
I think it just goes without saying this is like being the worst person ever if you're like that. Sorry for interrupting you. That's also being the worst person.
Yeah, but do you think that there is some like good portion of like being not rude, but like showing to the candidate that you are more experienced? Because what I know from the interviews that I was conducting is that it's always good to like show to the candidate how much he or she can learn in this company, asking or showing some very smart approaches. Like if you're talking to a junior Java developer and there was, I don't know, I imagine a discussion about the singleton, right? And you can say, hey, do you know that you can use an enum as a singleton in Java? And then, yeah, I didn't know about that. That's cool. Like, thank you very much. And then candidate understands how much he or she can learn in this company. But there is a question from Szymon Stępniak on YouTube, like regarding getting back to the candidate in 6 months. Should the candidate receive some kind of guideline on what to work, what skills to improve? Tomek, how do you do that? How do you deal with such questions?
Actually, during an interview, I'm always making notes of the things that the candidate didn't know, and that's not always a bad thing. I mean, there are so many technologies that you're not supposed to know everything. And sometimes I'm just, and that goes back to your question, sometimes I'm just teasing the candidate a little bit like, okay, you don't have to know like how this works in this language or technology or whatever, but I'm just going to note it down and I'm going to give it to you back as a feedback. And typically, because we didn't really cover how the great feedback should look like, typically I'm giving a list of books, list of articles to a candidate that I believe that they will help him or her, but also list of things that didn't go so well during an interview, and I just believe that the candidates should learn them because they are valuable in our particular company. So yes, these are the kind of guidelines like learn C# or learn how this framework changed between versions, or learn the concept of ACID in databases, or this and that and that. It's not always a bad thing. I mean, just to recapitulate, just the fact that the candidate doesn't know everything I know, it doesn't make this candidate a poor person. It just means like we have a different area of expertise. So I can give some guidelines.
And that's good.
And that's absolutely good, yeah. And also regarding feedback, so most of the interviews I did, or many of the interviews I did, were the design sessions where I give a very open architectural problem to a candidate, like design a system that does this and that. And there are many traps that are built into this problem, like how to distribute this system, how to handle errors, how to measure how it works. And candidates are like extremely happy with such tasks, because they see that there's a discussion. It's not just like dumping the data from their brain back to the recruiter, but also they have a feeling that they are talking to an expert. So there are two developers, two software engineers, and they have a discussion about the design. And that's also a way of building your own expertise. And once again, if the candidate is humble and if he or she wants to learn, he realizes that he or she is talking to an expert. She or he is an expert as well, and they are just like exchanging their ideas. And that's kind of very similar to how they would work normally at work.
Okay, so Tomek, let's try to like sum up everything that we said, because like it was designed to be a pretty quick live, and we're already like talking for 15 minutes. So like the first thing, if you know after 5 minutes that the candidate is poor, then it may be something with your bias. So please always talk to the candidate like 10 minutes more to verify if there were maybe something that make you bias, or if it's really like no fit for the candidate. So that's the first thing. If you know after 20 minutes that the candidate is not a fit for you, then what we do? We try to look for the strengths of the candidate to verify if it's a person that can be a fit for us in 6 months or not. If it's a fit for us in 6 months, then Tomek, what do you suggest to do?
From my experience, if I give a feedback with some very specific things that the candidate should learn or should read or whatever, then most of the time they do it. And very often they come back with that they actually want to show off that they learned all these things. And if they really care about a company, then they will do it. And guess what? If you have a great recruiting experience, then they will come back, and they because they remember that this was a good company. It didn't go so well, but it was a pleasure to the recruitment process was a pleasure, and I want to go back there. That's kind of the whole employer branding process. So give them a feedback, give them 6 to 12 months. And by the way, this can also be a feedback about learning a foreign language, like you need to know English better, for example. And I know people who actually went to classes and they learned English or whatever. So that's basically it. And it's always valuable to give concrete learning resources if they are missing hard skills like learning technology or framework or whatever.
Okay, and if you know that this candidate won't be a fit for your company in the next 6 months or something like this, then we need to check if the candidate is open for a feedback or not. If candidate is like close to a feedback, like totally, then it's good to just say like, of course, be polite, but say, okay, so like it makes no sense to continue this time. We want you to have this 30 minutes for you to drink coffee or something like this, but we are not going to hire you, and I know that already. So like thank you very much for your time, for participating in our process, but it's not going to work. However, if you see that the candidate is open for a feedback, then it's good to spend even 30 minutes talking to the candidate how you can teach, how you can learn, how you can train your skills, how you can develop the skills, how you can use, I don't know, open source contributions to improve your skills, how you can join meetups or some developer communities to learn. Because there are some people who just, because of the environment they enter as a first job after the studies, they enter the environment that is not developing, is not learning, is not updating the skills, etc. And they often have no idea that it's worth to, I don't know, watch sessions from conferences, attend the conferences, attend some, I don't know, local Java or other user groups, attend meetups, read books, contribute to open source, etc. And then you need to like spend 30 minutes explaining to this candidate how he or she can develop the skills, and what's the most important from the developer perspective, how important it is to stay up to date with the skills. Even if you won't know all the skills, like for example in Java, understanding and knowing the whole ecosystem is as important as understanding and like being like fluent in the Java programming language. And that's something that many people don't know, basically, because they enter the wrong environment. And then it's good, from my perspective, even to spend 30 minutes with the candidate explaining that and teaching about that. So do you agree, Tomek, or do you think like 30 minutes is way too much if you know that you are going to reject the candidate?
I mean, first of all, you shouldn't be rude. So just saying, yeah, you're terrible, just go out. And I heard about such circumstances actually, or people being really really unfair or laughing at the candidate, whatever. So yeah, just like it's another person, it's another developer with some different experiences, maybe a very young developer, maybe a developer from a company you've never heard of. So just spend a little bit time on small talk, like grab a coffee or whatever. Treat it as a social event and treat it as I hate to say it, but an employer branding event where you're actually building a brand of a company that wants to talk to people rather than just putting them out of the door. And one last thing that came into my mind, one pro tip, please talk to a person like a human, not like a corporate script. So if you have some feedback, just like vocalize it rather than using scripts like, I don't know, you're not the best fit or you're not an optimal fit for our company's culture or whatever. It just means nothing and it tells me nothing. So if you have no feedback, then you have to think to yourself, why do you have no feedback? And just be honest, because otherwise I feel like I just kicked the door of some corporate building and I didn't get nothing in return. So please talk like a human being to another human being, because we are people and not just like numbers in your CRM or recruiting system.
Yeah, and there is last question from the US Tech Info, like how can a candidate understand when interviews scheduled for specific technology or skills when they go out of the skills and asked for a candidate where he has to improve the skills? Tomek, do you have like anything to ask?
Quite understand the question, to be honest.
So as far as I understand, it means like if the candidate decided to join an interview and then the candidate realized that it's an interview for Java, not for JavaScript or something like this. And of course, if such situation happens, then the problem is with the job posting or job ad or job description. That often is like
or screening bad. Actually, because he was invited.
Yeah, so like basically that's why the screening is so important, because if during the screening you will send to the candidate even like a 30-minute test with Java, then the candidate will realize that it's not optimal fit. And we see it even on a daily basis when the candidate receives, I don't know, a React test and the feedback to the recruiter is, hey, I'm not a React developer, I'm an Angular developer. And of course I can learn React, but it's not what I do on a daily basis. And then you realize that that's a problem. And Java and JavaScript is like it's a like urban legend, but it happens that even the recruitment agencies, they are adding script or removing script depending what they need. Right now there is like a giant like requirement for front-end developers. So there are some Java developers, they're saying Java, JavaScript, almost the same. So like good screening and a good job posting should like resolve this situation. Cool. I think that's all. So thank you very much for joining us, and have a nice day. And we'll get back with some other topics. I already like have 2 topics for such quick webinars. So stay tuned.
So let's make it a series. Bye.